We're live.
And you are live.
Okay, thank you. This is once again House Ethics Panel meeting on Friday, May 7th, 2021.
And Mr. Chair, sorry to interrupt. Here comes Representative Kupali.
Okay. Good afternoon.
My sincere apologies. I started working on looking up some school construction stuff, and I blew it. So sorry.
No problem.
And Representative Kupali, just to give you an update, we are back on live stream, and you have just joined us for our second part of our meeting.
So just to get to where we are in the agenda, we have gone through 1, 2, and 3. So we are on number 4, which is oaths of office and disclosure review. So let me explain the issue here. We have a number of representatives who have either not signed the oath of office, failed to provide their legislative candidate disclosure, or failed to provide their House Rule 14A disclosure. The information with respect to the candidate disclosure and the Rule 14A disclosure is public information, and you can find it, well, on the House Rule 14A is on the clerk's page. Is that correct, Betsy Ann?
Mm-hmm.
And the legislative candidate disclosures is available from the Secretary of State's website. And the signed oath of office, I don't believe, is publicly available. Our practice, last biennium, we had a number of members who failed to provide their legislative candidates disclosures. And what we chose to do as a panel was to email those representatives and inform them of their failure. And I believe warn them that there might be a potential ethics violation if they continue to fail to do this. It's my understanding that with respect to the oath of office issue, that the House Clerk, Betsy Ann, has already emailed members several times to try to pry out of them their signed oath of office. So what I would propose to do is follow what we did last biennium, and I believe the chair did this, is email each of the reps that either failed to sign their oath of office, failed to file their legislative candidate disclosure, or failed to file their Rule 14A disclosure, and ask them to file them immediately. Brian, you have a question?
Yeah, I'm just as you're speaking, I was trying to look and see where and find this info. And so when I went to the Secretary of State's website, where exactly can you see if a person did this or not? Is it where it says candidate listing, or am I looking at the wrong thing?
So I can share the spreadsheet. There's an Excel spreadsheet that you pull up. Only one member this year has failed to file their legislative candidate disclosure, which is much better than last biennium, when I think we had 20 or more members who failed to file their candidate disclosure.
Okay, and then the other two pieces, I believe I remember, Betsy Ann, you sending me a reminder at the beginning of the session saying, you know, I didn't get your oath and your thing. And then I was like, oh my God, and I sent you it. So I remember that. And is that what you're referring to? Those emails you've sent more, and there's people who still haven't responded? Okay. All right. That's good. So I know what that is. There's the other piece that I'm trying to figure out. So I'll keep an eye out for the link to that spreadsheet at some point, just to be informed of where we're at with that. So thank you.
Yeah, it's actually a hard to read spreadsheet because it has so many different fields. And unfortunately, the financial disclosure field is all the way at one end of the document, and the name of the rep is all the way at the other end. So, but there is only, the good news is there's only one rep on that list. There are more Betsy Ann, go right ahead.
Mr. Chair, I was going to say, I believe we have the form that of the correspondence that we had before. I can find that from the panel's prior records and provide it. I believe it came from the panel email address. I can confirm, and I can send
Okay.
that to the panel members, the draft form letter that went out to the members.
Okay, and so we can approve that too.
Sounds good. I will do that.
So just so people know, we have one person that didn't file their candidate disclosure, 5 people who did not file their 14A disclosure. And can you remind me, Betsy Ann, how many people failed to file? 2 failed to file their oath of office. Okay. So is everybody happy with an email coming from the House Ethics Panel that we will see a draft of and approve?
Yeah.
Okay, that's done. So the final issue is a draft memo. And let me put this in context before we review the memo. I think you all probably remember that when we were having a debate with respect to military pensions and whether they should be exempt or a portion of them should be, exempt from taxation, there was a roll call vote, or at least one roll call vote, there may have been more, where a number of members did not vote, but cited Rule 75. Does everybody recall that?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was, at least in my opinion, I'm only going to give you my opinion, was probably, there was no Rule 75 issue with respect to that, because if you were, a member of the military who received a pension, or the spouse or partner of a member of the military who received a pension, there was a number of House members that were in the same situation. And I think that the fair interpretation of Rule 75 is you have to be in a unique situation financially in order to use Rule 75. So this memo is being put forward to provide guidance about what Rule 75 is and how it should be used in practice. And I'll let Betsy Ann or Michael discuss it further from there.
Do you want me to go, Michael? Okay. So this draft memo is based on prior panel discussions, which in turn are based on our Rule 75, which is supported by Mason's Section 522-1, which in turn is based on other precedent, including Cushing's legislative assemblies, because Mason's is a body of parliamentary law that's based on precedent from prior sources. So what this memo would attempt to do is to provide to members, as the chair stated, an explanation of what Rule 75 actually means and requirements regarding voting. So would you like me to go through this memo, Mr. Chair, high level?
Just high level.
Okay. So House Rule 75, if you read it on its own, the memo starts out by saying Rule 75 says members shall not vote on questions in which they are immediately or directly interested. So that's not a lot of guidance for members, but House rules are supplemented by Mason's Manual of Legislative Procedure. And the applicable section there is Section 522-1, which is cited in the memo. The most relevant that it's highlighted is that the right of members to represent their constituencies is of such major importance that members should be barred from voting on proposals of direct personal interest only in clear cases and when the proposal is particularly personal. So that addresses personal interests, and then it also discusses pecuniary interests. Well, even that on its own is not exactly clear on what is a direct personal or pecuniary interest, but Mason's itself is built on other precedents, including it cites in Mason's Section 522, it cites as authority for that language that you see there, Cushing's legislative assemblies, which is prior parliamentary law. And so when you read Cushing's, it further provides details on what it means to have a direct personal or pecuniary interest. And so the third paragraph of page 1 describes In summary, these sections provide in Cushing's that a question is not of direct personal interest if it's not in regard to a legislator personally, such as a motion to censure that legislator. And it's not a question of direct pecuniary financial interest if it involves a matter of general public interest. The memo goes on to cite a really on point section of Cushing's to say to be a direct pecuniary interest, it has to belong to a separate description of individuals and not such as belongs to all citizens arising out of a measure of state policy. Generally speaking, it applies only to private bills, which we don't really deal with here in the General Assembly, or bills relating to individuals, such as estate bills, enclosure bills, canals, and joint stock companies, wherein only the individual profit or loss is concerned, but it does not apply to questions of interest arising out of public measures like tax bills, colonial regulations, domestic trades, and the like. So going on to page 2, the first full paragraph, it describes, especially as a citizen legislature, members of General Assembly are at times going to face votes that impact themselves individually and their district and the state also. So in bold, accordingly, House Rule 75 has generally been interpreted so that if a vote would affect both a legislator and a larger group of people, the legislator is not required to recuse because the vote is not of immediate or direct interest under House Rule 75. There's a transparency recommendation in the next paragraph. And then also there's language saying on the converse of Rule 75 prohibiting votes on questions of immediate or direct interest. There are also other House rules that describe that it's a duty of members to vote on all questions and to vote unless excused by the House. Although it does say in practice, members have at times abstained without getting permission from the House first. And then it ends with an encouragement for members who think they have an immediate or direct interest to contact the panel because the panel has a specific duty to advise individual members on ethical conduct, including compliance with House Rule 75.
Yeah, I find that very helpful because if one does just look at the House rules, it doesn't tell you very much. So I think this is great.
Any other questions? So what I would like to do, because this is a communication going out to all House members, is I would like to be able to advise the speaker and consult with her before we send this out. And unless there's some objection to that, that's what I would like to do, because I think the speaker should get a heads up. Yeah, this is coming.
Good idea, John. Good idea.
Is anybody opposed to that?
I am not opposed to that at all.
No.
Okay. I think that's our final piece of business for the afternoon. Thanks everyone for taking time out of their day. I know we all have very, very busy days. And thanks to Michael and Betsy Ann for their terrific work with the ethics panel and staying on top of all of our rules and procedures. So obviously we'll be getting an email or more than one from Betsy Ann or Michael with respect to some of the decisions we made today. And so keep your eyes open for those either later today or next week. We'll probably meet once more before the session's over to discuss the complaint we received.
Great.
Any questions? Then we can go off live stream and adjourn the meeting. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending today.
Again, my sincere